Well, it's time now for a look at what's making the headlines in today's international papers. And Katerina Vitozzi, our press reviewer, joins me for that. Hello, Katerina.
Hello.
So we've seen lots of images today, some of them from our correspondent Gallagher, of celebrations in the streets of Ramallah over that successful UN bid by the Palestinian Authority. But what's been the reaction in the press?
Well, there's been some quite poignant opinion pieces, as you can imagine, over the successful bid. One I'd like to point out particularly is in the Palestine Chronicle. Now, it's written by a man called Yuri Avnery, and he used to be a soldier in the Israeli Defense Force. He became a politician because for him, he could say that even in 1948, when he was fighting Palestinians, that the only way for peace he saw was a two-state solution. He says that this was a day of joy because for him it really is the first foot on the path to peace and to finding this two-state solution. Some interesting pieces coming out from reporters sent to Ramallah, as you say. Scenes of celebration reported in a piece in Le Figaro. However, opinions slightly divided. This is something that our own correspondents have said, people they've spoken to as well. Some people's thinking nothing's really going to change. Others seeing that this really is, again, a stepping stone to peace. So some interesting reaction there. From Jerusalem Post, it's interesting to see they've sort of rather taken the line of much of sort of the slightly more right-wing Israeli media, quite a muted response, suggesting that, in fact, nothing's really going to change as a result of this bid. Specifically, they say the threat of the legal tsunami with regards to maybe Palestine taking Israel to the ICC court. They say this is a threat that had been sort of much vaunted before the successful bid. Now they say, you know, if it's ever going to happen, it's sort of going to take years in the process. So really trying to quite a muted response to that bit there.
OK, well, we're going to move now to the Washington Post because they've been taking a look at Thursday's internet blackout in Syria.
They've been looking at why it was cut off and what it means. The internet and social media has been something that's been really used a lot by the regime itself. So why have they cut it off? Is this, the Washington Post asked, because they felt like the rebels were making inroads online, or is it because there's something else worse to come? So really quite a tense time there. There's also been obviously a lot of reaction to the tense times in Egypt as well. The front page of Al-Masri Al-Yum, this is the Egyptian Independent Daily, they say this is the most dangerous of all. This in reference to the approval of a new draft constitution there. They say that this is probably one of the most precarious days so far in the recent history in Egypt. An interesting piece also in the Egyptian Independent asking, where is the military in all this? It's been such a deal breaker or maker in the past, but the Egyptian generals being really rather quiet. They say maybe the Egyptian President Mohamed Morsi has somewhat sort of preempted them in the lead up to these decisions. However, they shouldn't be written off as a voiceless body, and they still have a lot of power in the country.
OK, well, moving perhaps back to a story that certainly has interested people here in France for a long time, and that is the fate of the former IMF boss Dominique Strauss-Kahn. He is once again back in the headlines.
Yeah, this is an exclusive in the New York Times today. They say sources close to the paper have said that lawyers have reached an out-of-court settlement with the New York hotel maid Nafissatou Diallo, who, remember, back in May 2011, I can't believe it was such a long time ago, accused the former IMF chief of sexual assault. This, they now say, has been resolved. The civil suit's been resolved. The criminal case was dropped some time ago. So in terms of the US civil action, all seems to be sorted there, according to the New York Times.
OK, well, finally to the British newspaper, The Independent, because a couple of articles there have grabbed your attention.
Yes, first off, their reaction to the Levinson inquiry into media ethics, a fantastic front page by The Independent. They say that this is tomorrow's fish and chip paper, a reference there to the fact that although this report, which was 2,000 pages long, called for sort of self-regulatory press. In fact, they say unless the government decide to act on this, it's really not going to have much effect. So they're sort of slightly say not much impact with that report, despite its sort of much vaunted implications. And another piece, we're heading into the weekend, you might want to kick back with a glass of wine, if you're of drinking age, of course. El Bulli, this is the Spanish restaurant voted the 5 times best restaurant in the world, closed its doors in 2011. It's now selling off its wine cellar. So over 8,000 bottles of wine up for grabs. They think it would probably be, it's going to be sold at auction. It might get around nearly 800,000 euros. But I'm sure there's something around the €10 mark for us, Lorna.
Oh, I do hope so. That would be nice to kick back with this weekend. Thank you very much indeed, Katerina, for that look at today's international papers.
Thank you.